All right, so the chance for a military conflict between the United States and Iran, we're told by many, is now higher than ever. That is coming from several veteran military analysts on this. Tensions are mounting over the Islamic Republic's nuclear program. Mike Barrett, former director of strategy for the White House Homeland Security Council, also a former intelligence officer for the Secretary of Defense. Mike, good to have you here this morning.
Morning, Martha.
You know, there are folks out there who believe that Iran may become an even hotter issue than the economy when we get closer to the presidential election. Do you believe this is a significant year in our relationship with them?
Oh, I think it's absolutely the pivotal year. I mean, not since 1979 have we been so close to coming to blows in an area that is so, it's even more strategically important to us now than it was then in terms of the amount of oil that flows through there and the criticality of that oil to the global economy.
You know, we've seen so many sort of things that have led to tensions rising. You have the former Marine who has been sentenced to death in Iran. I believe we have a picture of him. Amir Hekmeti has been sentenced to death. You also have the issue over the Straits of Hormuz, where they've told us that we couldn't bring our aircraft carrier back in there. That was overruled. You know, where do you see this heading next?
Well, I think you're just going to continue to see a massive escalation of tensions. And the real problem here is we haven't been clear about our policy. So, for example, Secretary of Defense Panetta has said we have two red lines. One, they're not allowed to acquire nuclear weapons. And two, we're going to maintain freedom of the Straits of Hormuz, freedom of navigation for the flow of oil. But the problem there is a lot of things that can be done subtly. Iran can use its influence in Iraq to affect the flow of oil by messing with their infrastructure for petroleum. They can also threaten our ships in a variety of ways, using landmines or clogging up, interfering with the flow of things. I used to run a team that was doing counter smuggling when Saddam Hussein was running oil through that area in the Persian Gulf there. Very small, very narrow waterways. The Iranians, you know, they have small boats. They're not particularly effective, but if they're willing to combine them with asymmetric tactics, with the use of sort of terrorist-type tactics, they can really cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, indeed they can. You know, when you look at sort of the lay of the land and the possibility of nuclear capability, and as you point out, Leon Panetta has said those are his two things. Those are the two lines that cannot be crossed, nukes and also the Straits of Hormuz. But you're saying that you think that that's too sort of specific in terms of what the red flags are. But then you also said that you don't think the U.S. policy has been clear enough.
Right. That's the point, is we have specific red lines, but what we have is rhetoric without the ability to carry out those red lines. Right. So, for example, the defense budget has been up in the air for the last year. We've been operating on continuing resolutions. And so what you see is the domestic uncertainty that we have in the U.S. mapped up against the domestic uncertainty in Iran in terms of how that regime is going to stay in power. So we have uncertainty and domestic needs in their country and uncertainty and domestic needs in our country. And I think that that's what creates the ambiguities and the tensions. And frankly, the likelihood of conflict is very high, because nobody's really sure what's going to happen. We have the sequestration, which is supposed to cut $50 billion additional out of the defense budget each year. My firm helps out doing mapping for strategy versus budgets for the DoD world, you know, for the defense world. And it's very hard to tell right now. We say one thing, but we're not matching it with the resources.
Boy, that's a frightening scenario. Mike Barrett, thank you very much. Good to talk to you today.
We'll still miss